Today we got to talk about Jakailin Johnson choosing Ohio State over Clemson and kinda sorta Notre Dame, but really it's just a smack to Notre Dame. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, we need to talk about Jakailin Johnson on this here sports talk show. Now, Jakailin Johnson would be the highest rated defensive back to sign with Ohio State since Tyreek Johnson in 2018, who was ranked number 21 in the 247 sports composite. Johnson is ranked number 59, four-star recruit, 6'1", 170 pounds. He has everything you want, and he's also the first big get of the Coombs defensive coordinator era. I know that this is his second stint. You don't have to go back with that. I also know that Kerry Coombs is remarkable when it comes to coaching defensive backs and putting them into the NFL. That's why Ohio State fans consider themselves DBU, even as Alabama has more defensive backs in the National Football League at present. But what's really interesting about Jakailin Johnson choosing Ohio State over Clemson and, yes, Notre Dame is when he had a top list come out in like October, Notre Dame was on the list. And he was really considering there because his former teammate, Jordan Johnson, a five-star recruit to some, had ended up at Notre Dame and is probably going to be a contributor right away because Notre Dame only returns dudes that caught a total of 11 passes in 2019. So Ian Book's going to get used to some new targets. One of them, again, could be Jordan Johnson, 6'2", 185 pounds, possession receiver. He's really outstanding in the leadership aspect and understanding football because he comes out of Smet Jesuit in St. Louis. You probably heard of Smet because they go from 2-18 when Rob Peoples gets there to winning a state championship, going 14-0 last year with a win over Joplin. Now, they have a three-headed monster at running back, and that's how they were able to beat the hell out of people. And Johnson went both ways. Jordan Johnson, not Jakailin Johnson, they're not related. And that's how he basically announced himself onto the team. It's just another example of how if you play for a good high school football team, people will find you. He goes from unknown to five-star when he goes to some camps where he's facing national talent and he's swooping on him. That's how you end up as a five-star. Go to national combine camps, swoop on these really highly regarded recruits, and then you'll vault up and you end up at Notre Dame. Now, Jakailin Johnson, as I was mentioning, was considering Notre Dame along with Clemson. Oklahoma was on the list, but I hadn't really heard of him considering Oklahoma since way back in December. So he gets to this space where Robert Steeples, his head coach at Smet, former NFLer, ends up saying, hey, look, I'm going to interview for this cornerback position now that Todd Light has vacated it. And he did, but he didn't get the job. Mike Mickens out of Cincinnati got the job, and he's defensive back coach at Notre Dame. Also interesting in that Todd Light followed Kerry Cooks at Notre Dame. Kerry Cooks, you'll know, was defensive backs coach at Oklahoma. Mike Stoops stole him away from Notre Dame. Didn't seem to matter because Notre Dame had Julian Love, who was a Paycom Jim Thorpe Award finalist, not even semifinalist, finalist, and they also had Elodie Gilman last year. They were really good. Now, stepping into that is one thing because Notre Dame's pass defense was actually pretty good last year. And I get why you don't necessarily go with Steeples. He doesn't really have the coaching background that you'd want to see. I mean, this is like DeMarco Murray ended up as the running backs coach at Oklahoma. Steeples has put together a great high school football program, and he's very much in on his kids' recruiting, and you could see what he was able to do at Smet in a short amount of time. I mean, Jordan Johnson was a part of one of those 1-9 teams who goes 14-0 a couple years later. They go from giving up 56 points a game to giving up like 8.6. Like, remarkable turnaround up there in Missouri. But when he didn't get the job, Robert Steeples, as defensive back coach, guess who took Notre Dame off their list? Jakailin Johnson. And now with Jakailin Johnson pulling the trigger on Sunday in this very weird dead period for college football and really sports, I found that remarkably interesting because, one, you add more to an Ohio State class that is pushing to finish number one in the 2021 cycle. Long way to go. I understand that. But when you got Jack Sawyer already in the boat and you're pretty set at quarterback and you're just adding defensive talent all over the board, it's hard to see Ohio State not finishing in the top five for sure. And I get that Ohio State fans feel some kind of way about, one, being able to add a really quality kiddo to their class, but also get to stick it to Notre Dame. Because as I've said many times, there are no halfway fans when it comes to Notre Dame. You're either all in or you absolutely positively hate them. There's no in between. There's no so-sos with Notre Dame. They have an open marriage with the ACC that I hate. They only got to play 5 ACC games each year. They get to pick and choose the rest of their schedule. This year, they get Arkansas at South Bend. They finish with USC, and in the middle of that, they get Clemson. I think Clemson is going to run over them, like a paver over pavement. Like stopping a mud hole and walking them dry. I don't think this is going to be close. Trevor Lawrence coming back in his draft-eligible year. You get Travis Etienne coming back, who might be the best tailback returning, not named Chuba Hubbard. You also get reloaded at wide receiver and on the defense. I think Clemson's going to be good. I also think that Notre Dame is in a position to do some really outstanding things because you return Ian Book for a third year. Yes, you're going to be very young at wide receiver, but you're going to be very talented. If you can run the football, play defense with Kyle Hamilton on the back end, you're going to be good. Now, getting back to the recruiting aspects of this, I think that knowing that Steeples was sending the kiddo to Ohio State and knowing what he feels about Kerry Coombs, he's also trying to set him up for another job. I don't blame him for that because in a very short amount of time, he has also demonstrated he wants to leave Smet Jesuit. And when you can do those sorts of turnaround situations as a high school football coach, you become in demand. You become known as a capable recruiter, and they don't care which side of the ball they get you on. Just take a look at Joey McGuire at Baylor. He can coach offense, defense, special teams, whatever, because down there at Cedar Hill, he was just turning out talent after talent. Charleston Rambo came from Cedar Hill, was one of those kiddos that ended up playing at Oklahoma and is going to lead the 2020 wide receiving core. Ought to be the best player in that wide receiving core based on experience and talent alone. But Jaden Hazelwood, Theo Weiss will have something to do with that. I really want to talk about this one because it's a recruiting commit at the top end and the top 100, but also to demonstrate to you that every move matters and these all have ripple effects. Like if Steeples gets the job at Notre Dame, there's no doubt in my mind that Jakailin Johnson ends up committing to play at Notre Dame. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. You'd also join your former teammate Jordan Johnson over there and y'all could continue to build. I also think it's interesting that Brian Kelly even allowed the interview to take place knowing that we don't have a whole lot of background on Steeples as a coaching person, really. I mean, quite honestly, not quality control, not grad assistant, not a whole lot there. Even transferred from Missouri, I believe, to Memphis to finish out his college football career, went undrafted, played for a couple of teams, and then took this job, and in 4 years, you've seen what he's done with it. Now, as we continue to go through the cycle, it's going to be interesting to see what kids end up popping off during the dead period about where they want to commit, because this is one of those commits that took place during this dead period. You got to know that the phone's working. And that's where we're going to see most of the recruiting, all of the recruiting, go on here for the foreseeable future. Maybe the next 2 months, we'll see a lot of phone time and a lot of FaceTimes, and then we'll see a lot more commits. Shout to Jakailin Johnson, who decided to give us some news to talk about, but you know how that goes. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.